Hi, everybody. This week we're going to start exploring the idea of problem based learning, which is going to lead us into the creation of a web quest, which actually happens in the next week. But I'm going to encourage you now and throughout this week to actually start that assignment and look at it sooner rather than later. And there is an extended tutorial on the WebQuest, so you'll be able to watch that to get some more insights. But we're going to start out by discussing problem-based learning, or PBL, so that we can get an idea of what it's all about and get, maybe even some ideas for actually doing our WebQuest by talking it through. So this is our second to last discussion. And it's a chance for us to explore this idea in more depth. It's something that you may already be familiar with. You may have a real good concept of PBL. You may not. And so this is a chance for all of us to share what we know and think about maybe after you've learned a little bit about it, have you ever done this before? Have you done PBL outside of this class? We've been kind of doing PBL in some fashion all semester, but how has it looked for you in other classes? Have you ever done something like a web quest, something rather extensive, a bigger project with a lot of components, maybe a multidisciplinary sort of thing where there's lots of things happening at different subjects and you're bringing it all together to solve a problem or propose a solution for something? And are there any concerns that you have about it as you're getting into this? How would you include this in your classroom? Is there any stumbling points? Are there any places where you're a little worried about how that would happen in your future classroom? And then, try and share with us a resource. Do a little research now that'll help you for later to come up and do a little research about, what you're experiencing with PBL, what you can find. If you type in PBL in a search box, you're going to come up with all kinds of neat stuff. So share with us maybe a lesson or a resource, an app even, whatever you find interesting. And we'll explore all this together. Now, the reason why, again, that we're sharing this in advance is that next week, you are going to be doing a rather big project. So it helps to start it now. In the next week, you're going to be doing the web quest. And like I said, there's an extended version. So I want to make sure that you check that out when you can. But I'm going to kind of preview it very quickly here to get you thinking about it. The web quest isn't necessarily massively huge, will take you hours and hours and hours, although it can. So just be aware of that. You're building a lesson in a very specific way. It has 5 components that you can watch this video. He will explain to you in more detail. The man who created the web quest, his name is Dr. Bernie Dodge from San Diego State University. Really cool guy, and has been kind of the forerunner for this idea of putting PBL on the web. There are many ways to do PBL. We are learning one really specific model for it because it's easy for us to follow since we're new to it. That's why we're kind of doing this as a web quest. It's a very specific way to organize a lesson online for students to follow from start to finish. So you're going to have an introduction. So start off with some way of capturing the student's attention. It's going to tell them what they're doing, kind of their general overview with their objectives. It's going to have a process, a step-by-step. Okay, here's what you do. Here's where you go. Here's where you find resources. And this is the product I want to see at the end. So it's not a guided lesson in that, you're doing like, say, a worksheet or something. This is a PBL. So this is something where here's a problem. You need to come up with the solution. Here's some resources to start doing your research. Let me see what you can come up with. That's the typical structure for our process. So it's not, now we're going to learn about your ABCs, and here are the ABCs, and, what did you just learn about the ABCs? It's not that kind of thing. It's a little bit more scaled up. Sometimes those of us who teach the early grades have a hard time thinking about these concepts, and I'll show you an example. And there are more in the extended lesson of what that looks like. But you're going to give them also the evaluation, everything that they know, that they need to know to include in order to be successful. So what does the evaluation rubric look like? You're actually going to create a rubric, and then you wrap it up and you tell us what your standards are, and you give us credit for all your places where you've gotten resources, pictures, that kind of thing. And it's going to be published as a website. So you're actually going to make your very own website in tools like Google Sites or Weebly or Zuno. There are several different places you can go to make an awesome website. And so that's what you're going to create. So as an example, I'm purposely going to choose a example for young kids. Heather here has done, let's do this one. I'm going to fix that link. It was good too, but this one's good. Mr. Blueberry's Animal Experts. Okay, so Mr. Blueberry is meant for about first or second grade. I believe it's targeted for second grade. And Shirley had developed this as a way to integrate language arts with a little bit of social studies. And maybe even a little science too, because we're going to explore animals. So there's several things going on here. But the big thing is that they're reading a book, they're writing letters based on research that they do about animals. Because the whole concept, Mr. Blueberry has lost his animals and he's not sure where to put them. So, we need to explain why it is that, say, whales don't belong in our backyards. Right? So that's the kind of thing that we're getting at. So it's a fun way to introduce this lesson, and you're bringing in your literacy plus your science and some other things. So she introduces us briefly. You've got our, Mr. Blueberry. You're going to become Mr. Blueberry's assistants. You're going to help him out. And this is what we're going to do. So the task is short. The process is the part that's long and the part that you're probably going to spend the most time on. Where everything is explained. Here's what we're going to do first. We're going to do this. We're going to go research some things. She's got some things to download and look at. Here's all the animals. Here's some places you can go to learn about the animals. So she gives a bunch of choices, gives them the research, because remember, we don't really want them just going off on Google and doing whatever. So we're giving them really focused places to do their research. If they're older, we might say, okay, here are some places to start, and now you know what to look for to keep going. But the teacher has curated some of these links so students aren't just wandering off into the World Wide Web. Then they look over their research, they do a rough draft of their letters. They have some models to look at. Then they have a couple different letters that they have to write, and that's their products that they're completing. And so they do a final copy, and that's the product that they then show that they're using letter writing skills, are using pictures, all that good stuff. So their evaluation, of course, includes all those things, including things like teamwork, because they are working together with a partner. So talking about their teamwork, as well as how they've written their letter and content in the form. And then we wrap it all up. You're now an animal expert. Good job. Maybe give them something else to do. Like, hey, if you really enjoyed doing this, why don't you try this game or this activity? Do you want extra credit? Here's some extra credit. That's how you tend to wrap things up. Now, I will tell you, this one is done in Quest Garden. There are lots of other places to do your website. Quest Garden is really easy. It's a little old school, but it's super easy to use. And you're going to see a lot of examples that use it because it's so easy to work specifically with web quests. You don't have to build all this stuff. You just fill in a bunch of boxes and it fills in all the rest. It does all the technical stuff for you. So it's easy to use. And you can see it's also got a nice teacher section. So as you go through, it's got sections specifically laid out for teachers to show that, what the standards are, to give them ideas about what kinds of things to go in each section and so forth. So our web quests are problem-based lessons. So when you're thinking about this discussion, you can also look ahead to the web quest and look at what some of the problems and projects that your fellow students have come up with over the years. That might give you some inspiration as well.